The sun bled across the desert sky, a burning orange disk sinking, low behind the red mesas as the wind whispered. Through the brittle sage, rancher Luke McAllister had ridden a long way that evening, chasing. Rumors of rustlers, maybe, or just ghosts from his past. He wasn't sure anymore, but what he found instead would haunt him far more than any outlaw or memory could. Tied to a weathered wooden frame near the dry creek bed was an Apache girl, barely more than 20, her wrists bound tight with rawhide, her dark hair tangled with dust and blood. Her breath came in sharp gasps, and when she lifted her head, her eyes were fierce, wild like the desert storm. For a moment Luke thought he'd stumbled, onto some cruel punishment left behind by raiders or soldiers. But then he saw the markings on the ground, painted symbols in red clay, half washed by the wind, and realized this was something older, something sacred. A ritual. The girl's voice cracked through the silence like a whip. "Please, take it off," she cried, her accent thick, her words trembling between desperation and command. "Take it off before it's too late." Luke froze in the saddle. He'd seen strange things before on the frontier. Apache rites meant to summon or banish spirits, but this one sent a chill down his spine. The air around her felt heavy, charged, the kind of stillness that comes right before a storm or a curse. He dismounted slowly, his boots crunching on dry soil. "Who did this to you?" he asked, his voice rough. "Was it the soldiers?" She shook her head weakly, eyes darting to the painted symbols at her feet. "My people," she whispered. "They think I brought death. The sickness took our water, our crops. They tied me here to the sun spirit to burn the curse away. But it's wrong. It's all wrong." The wind gusted, scattering dust like ash. Luke stepped closer, torn between caution and compassion. He'd been taught never to meddle in Apache customs. It was asking for trouble. But the way her voice cracked when she said please hit something deep in him. Something he thought he'd buried long ago. He reached for the knots, but they were old and tight, soaked in sweat and fear. "If I do this," he said quietly, "they'll come for me too." "Then ride fast," she breathed. "But take it off before the sun goes." He looked up at the sky. The last edge of the sun hung on the horizon, turning everything blood-red. The heat shimmered and the painted symbols seemed to move like they were alive. Luke didn't believe in curses, not really. But he believed in people, in mercy, in doing what a man ought to do even when it costs him. He drew his knife and cut through the first binding. The rope snapped and the girl gasped like she'd been underwater too long. The air around them seemed to pulse. Her voice came again, softer now, trembling. "The necklace. Take it off me." Luke hesitated. Around her neck hung a bone pendant, carved with spirals and symbols. It glowed faintly in the dying light, almost like it was breathing. "That's part of the ritual," she said, tears in her eyes. "If it stays when the sun dies, my soul won't." Luke's hand hovered over it. The air felt electric, like lightning before it strikes. Then he clenched his jaw and ripped it off. The moment he did, a low rumble shook the ground beneath them. The sky darkened suddenly as if the sun had been swallowed whole. Luke grabbed her by the shoulders to steady her, but she collapsed into his chest, sobbing, trembling from exhaustion. "It's done," she whispered. "The spirit's gone." For a long moment neither of them spoke. Only the wind moved, gentle now, brushing across the open prairie like a sigh of relief. Then Luke carried her to his horse, wrapping her in his coat. She was light, too light. Her skin burned with fever, her lips cracked from thirst. "You need water," he said softly, "and rest." "You shouldn't have helped me," she murmured, her voice fading. "They'll call you cursed too." He gave a half smile, mounting his horse. "Wouldn't be the first time. Someone's called me worse." He rode through the night, the stars cold and bright above them. Behind him the wooden frame still stood, empty now, creaking in the wind like a cross at the edge of the world. By dawn, they reached his ranch, a lonely stretch of land fenced with barbed wire and memories. He laid her by the fire and gave her water. She drank greedily, her hands shaking. For the first time, Luke saw her smile, weak but real. "You broke the ritual," she said softly. "No one's ever done that before." "Maybe it needed breaking," he replied, staring into the flames. "Sometimes old ways ain't right ways anymore." For a long time, they sat in silence, the desert waking outside as the light crept over the hills. The girl, Naya, she told him her name was, rested her head on his arm. There was peace in her now where before there had been terror. And Luke, for the first time in years, felt something like purpose again. He didn't know what would come next, whether the tribe would hunt him, or if some curse would follow. But he knew one thing for sure: he wouldn't regret what he'd done. He'd saved a life, maybe even his own. As the morning sun spilled through the window, he looked out toward the open land and whispered to himself, "Sometimes mercy's the only law worth breaking."